Welcome, everybody. Looks like the webinar is open and we have a lot of our community guests who are joining. I'm going to give just a little bit of time for all of our guests to join, and then we will get started. Looks like most people are getting filled in, so let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 5:30. Tuesday, March 8th for our regular business meeting of the Vancouver School District Board of Directors. The first thing we are going to do is start with a roll call, and we'll call Director Decker.
Sorry, I'm here.
Director Smith.
Here.
Director Sproul.
Here.
And Director Zavala.
Here.
And I am also here. So we have all in attendance. We are going to go ahead and start our meeting. Let me pull up my agenda with our superintendent report. So I will turn it over to Dr. Snell.
Thank you, Director Barros. I'm going to share my screen with you all. Is that coming through all right? Okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our meeting. I have some information for you this evening in the superintendent report, and then we'll also have employee excellence awards later in the agenda. So just a couple of quick updates. The legislative session, I've been trying to give you a briefing on these at each of our meetings. And so when we started this week, March 7th, day 57, so we're on day 58 today. There's been some kind of in these last couple of weeks of the session, there's what they call the reconciliation, where they're really working between Senate bills and House bills and budgets. And I'm hearing that we may see a budget Wednesday or Thursday, a compromise budget. So that's good news, and have not heard anything about going beyond March 10th. So that's really helpful as we establish a budget process. And so I know that Director Smith and Director Sproul are on the budget committee, and we have a meeting later this week. And so once the Senate is, or the session is over, then there's the interpretation of what that means and looking at the budget. But it does definitely give us better insight into what the year ahead looks like. We've been paying attention to a few bills over time that directly impact our district, and there's a lot of bills that potentially do that, but enrollment stabilization and staffing allocations are directly tied to our staffing model for next year. The staffing allocation one, as we've discussed before, is the state is looking to invest a little more in counselor support, social emotional support. So we have already invested beyond the state allocation for that using local funds, but it would be great to get more opportunities through that. So we're paying attention to that. And then, as I've mentioned before, we're looking at the pupil transportation bills because the system for funding transportation has been pretty archaic, and a lot of people have wanted to make some changes to that, but it's a heavy lift to make the changes. And our own Brett Blechschmidt has contributed greatly towards the legislation on that. So hopefully next time we meet, we'll actually kind of talk about wrap up and what we know from the session. So any questions on the ledge session so far? Okay. So pandemic planning and response is kind of the bulk of my information today. I've showed this anchor slide throughout the year just to report case rates. This slide is still up and active on Clark County Public Health. However, the CDC has shifted. Instead of looking at case rates per 100,000 per 14 days, they're using the indicator of 7 days. And so on the Clark County Public Health side, you'll also see this embedded dashboard from the Washington State site. And so just wanted to do a screenshot that we'll probably start moving more in this direction since this is the metric that they're using. In addition to the cases per 100,000 per 7 days, they also look at percentage of population that's vaccinated and also hospital beds occupied by COVID-19 patients. So those three indicators seem to be ones that in this next phase that we're going to be paying attention to. So I want to provide that to you in each of our updates, and then just reference that these are available on Clark County Public Health site. I'm not sure. I know that they used to update on Wednesdays, the Clark County Public Health dashboard that I showed in the previous slide. I'm not sure when these get updated, and you can see that I took the screenshot and its last update was March 3rd. So I'm just going to kind of pay attention to when those seem to be updated. So there's kind of a regular cadence that we can look into that. But obviously the rates have gone down dramatically, not just in Clark County, but across the state. So it's really good news. And it led to some announcements, right? In mid-February, we talked about Governor Inslee's announcement. And at that time, it was to remove the indoor mask requirement, including in K-12 schools. And they had scheduled that for March 21st. And then since that time, another press conference, and they switched that date to March 12th. Which means that this is our last week of having a mask requirement in K-12 schools, at least in the near future, hopefully for the long term as well. At the time of the original announcement, there was still masks required on buses because that was a federal regulation. And since that time, the CDC has also revisited that requirement and has adjusted it to optional as well. The governor shared some rationale behind that. I know that we've talked about that before, and also shared that, you know, if for some reason COVID rates increase again, there's another variant, outbreaks, things like that, that these restrictions could be dialed up again. So just trying to, I guess, share as much information about this announcement as possible and the context for it and what could potentially change it. So we have been waiting for K-12 guidance to be updated. The K-12 guidance from the Department of Health reflected previous requirements, and so they needed to update, in particular, the mask requirement. And then because of the mask requirement, some other guidance needed to be adjusted as well. So there was a state call today to review that, the information, and it was released late last night. But it doesn't take effect until, I think, you know, transitions midnight on March 11th. So Saturday is the first day. Again, the indoor mask requirements will be lifted effective Saturday. And there could be some situations where masks may be required. And in fact, they are required in our health rooms because those are considered health provider things. And those are still, you know, as hospitals and things of that nature, they still have masks. So that's a place that they are required. And then in other situations, like if there were an outbreak, if there was some sort of scenario where testing to return back to school or things of that nature, there could be masks required. And so we are paying attention to, as you all know, that the update will come out, and then they work on like the flow charts and you know, if this, then that. And so those are still in the works. So we're kind of paying attention to that. In general, fewer requirements that moving from mandatory to advisory, and then also looking at things like contact tracing and quarantining. Those are going to be less significant of a lift for staff and to manage and support families and students with. So feeling good about that. Department of Health talked about the focus of keeping kids in school while still trying to prevent the severe spread. And so they're trying to manage both of those and saying that basically the times are dictating these transitions. Finally, we are continuing layered mitigation. And so even though masking isn't a requirement, we still have a lot of layers of prevention that are in effect in schools, including our HVAC system, hand hygiene, you know, our regular cleaning, our testing protocols, whatever those ones might adjust a little based on what I talked about with the flow chart. And some of the physical distancing requirements. And if you recall, the physical distancing, even in the original, talked about, you know, do physical distancing, but you need to have in-person learning. It wasn't that was going to stop in-person learning from happening. So basically, as a district, what we're looking at is the mask is a pretty big deal. So trying to manage that up front, make sure people feel supported in whatever option that they choose. And then also starting to see what happens, you know, like we don't want to have a bounce back of our rates right away. So using the first couple of weeks to kind of just assess what's going on with that. And then it works out pretty nice with where spring break is. And so we can kind of get a lay of the land and the impact, not just in Clark County, but as a state, and then look at the spring of maybe removing other layers of the mitigation strategy as fit, and working with Clark County Public Health in that as well. So lots of information with that. Yep, that's the last slide. So I'll pause and see if directors have any questions regarding the updates. Okay, it doesn't look like any questions. We are in the process. I'm not sure if it was sent yet or not. A message out to families about okay, so it looks like some of you got it. It went out to staff earlier today after we got the information from the state. So I'm trying to make sure that we communicate as much as we can, as quickly as we can with our stakeholders. So, and that's what I have for the superintendent report tonight, Director Barros.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for those updates. Next on our agenda, we have special recognitions. We do our Employee Excellence Awards here at our board meeting, and Kathy Everidge is going to introduce those.
Thank you, Director Barros. Well, it's that time to recognize the March 2022 Employee Excellence Award recipients. The following employees were selected by a committee of their peers for commitment to the students and staff of Vancouver Public Schools. This month's recipients were among the many outstanding nominees who create a caring environment and positive workplace through their exceptional efforts. For information about each recipient, or if you would like to submit a nomination, please visit the district website at vansd.org. So our first recipient we are honoring tonight is Esther Pawalo. She was hired in February 2012, bus driver with the Transportation Department. Esther radiates love and compassion for everyone she meets. Her care was evident when she intervened in a tense moment between students that could have ended poorly. Esther spoke kindly to them and encouraged them to make good choices. The students calmed down and responded positively. Esther hugged each student and told them how proud she was of them. Later, they commented on how well she treats them. Esther is proof that every staff member can have a tremendous impact. Congratulations, Esther. Next is Brenda Hall. Brenda Hall was hired in February 1999. She's a district resource officer at Fort Vancouver High School, Center for International Studies, and Safety and Security Department. Professionalism, positive influence, safety, and integrity are at the core of Brenda's approach to her job. Said her nominator, I have witnessed Brenda in some very escalated situations. She is always calm, caring, and authoritative. Students and staff members know that they can depend on her. Brenda also has been selected to train many new district resource officers so that they too can cultivate trusting relationships at their schools and become successful in their roles. Congratulations, Brenda. Next is Ben Miramontes. He was hired in August 2017, teacher at Anderson Elementary. Using bowling to teach subtraction is one of the many ways that Mr. M, as he's known, brings fun and learning to his students. They are eager to come to school each day and find his large stuffed Tyrannosaurus Rex named Chomp in different locations around the classroom. Mr. M takes the time to understand each student's needs, and he helps them to learn how to set healthy boundaries and show kindness to one another. His classroom sets the stage for a lifelong love of learning. Congratulations, Ben. Next is Juvano Polito. He was hired in September 2014. He's a district resource officer with Safety and Security Department. JP has been on the front lines at some of the most challenging events that the district has faced in recent years. He is known for maintaining his calm and professionalism during these trying situations. JP also is adept at serving 7 different elementary schools and meeting the unique needs of each location's staff and students. He is quick to accept extra duties so that each school has the coverage that it needs. JP's colleagues praise his positive outlook. Congratulations to JP. And finally, would like to recognize Selena Walker. She was hired in September 2018. She's a teacher at Vancouver School of Arts and Academics. A large poster in Selena's classroom reads, "In a world where you could be anything, be kind." Her students say that she embodies that idea. Said one, playing an instrument can get incredibly nerve-wracking at times, especially when you have to play in front of others. But she has always made it so stress-free and has never made me feel judged or embarrassed. Said another, the philosophy she teaches about kindness and bringing a deeper meaning to learning has helped shape me into the person I am today. Congratulations to Selena. And I'd like to congratulate all of our March 2022 Employee Excellence Award recipients.
Congratulations to all of our recipients. We are excited to have such wonderful talent in our district and always enjoy honoring the work that you guys are doing. So I thank you, Kathy, for presenting those. Next on our agenda, we have audience participation. This is when we do citizen comments. Citizen comments is the time of our meeting where the board and staff like to hear comments from the public. Because most matters require fact-finding and review, the board is not able to respond to public comments made at this time. Additionally, the state's Open Public Meetings Act restricts deliberation on topics that have not been placed on the publicly noticed agenda in advance. If follow-up action is necessary, the board will ask the superintendent to work with administrative staff to consider the information and respond accordingly. Speakers are expected to be respectful. Personnel complaints and personnel attacks are not permitted. The board asks that personnel complaints be submitted in writing. Speakers will be promoted to panelists as I call their name. And if you could just make sure if you are signed up for public comment that your screen name reflects your name that you signed up with. That helps us find you and promote you to panelist. When you are promoted, if you could please state your name and your affiliation with the district for the record. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. When you hear the chime, please conclude your remarks. If you do have materials or additional comments you would like us to review, please submit those to vpsboard.directors@vansd.org. That information will be shared with the superintendent and the board. We appreciate, listen, and care about the broad range of perspectives on our community, and thank you for your comments. First up on our list, we have Daphne Guarin.
Promoting name.
I hope I pronounced your last name correctly, Daphne. I apologize if I did not. So Daphne, it looks like you've been promoted. When you are ready, you can unmute yourself and then turn on your camera and you will have 3 minutes. Please state your name and affiliation with the district and you can begin.
Okay, thank you. My name is Daphne and I'm a student with Vancouver School District. I'm a senior at Heights campus, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the competency pathway. I've been doing the competency pathway since the beginning of the school year. Since then, so many aspects of my life have changed, the main one being my outlook on school and education. Before joining the competency pathway, I was credit deficient and I lacked motivation to finish school. My teachers have been incredibly helpful since then with helping me get back on track after feeling helpless when it came to graduating. The competency pathway has challenged me to use critical thinking and really dive deep into what I feel my purpose is. The program is great for people who don't do well with the typical class-by-class diploma, and it's made me realize that there is a way for students like myself to graduate feeling accomplished by everything that I've learned. I'm able to learn about topics that spark my interest, such as local politics, and I'm actually currently completing a research project on the homelessness and housing crisis in Portland, Oregon, which has been an amazing learning experience. The competency pathway also allows flexible hours for students working part-time, such as myself, and has given me the opportunity to turn those shifts that I've worked into credits to help me reach my goal of graduation. I now feel confident in graduating this year, and I believe that if it weren't for the competition,
Well, I think she might have frozen. Daphne, I think you are frozen. Oh, there. Oh, you're back. Daphne, I think you froze for the last little bit.
Okay, I will start at the last paragraph. I was just saying that now that I'm in the competency pathway, I feel very confident in graduating this year. And I believe that if it weren't for the competency pathway, graduating wouldn't be an option for me. And then I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful for my teachers and the opportunity that they have given me of the graduation pathway that I feel is perfect for me and so many other students.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments tonight. Next on the list, we have Wendy Moose.
Not seeing Wendy in the list tonight.
All right, I don't either. Wendy, if you are watching, it does not look like you are signed in with your name. So if you could just double check that, but we will move on. Next on the list, we have Kim Cusick.
Promoting.
Did it work?
Yep, you are here. Hi, Kim.
Great.
Perfect.
Hi.
So you can go ahead and start by stating your name and affiliation with the district, and you'll have 3 minutes.
I'm so sad you made me go after Daphne. I'm trying to recover from everything she said. My name's Kim Cusick, and I'm one of the members of the teaching team of the Heights Open Doors program. This is my 29th year in public education, the last 8 of which have been in Vancouver, and all of those at the Leaser, now Heights building in one capacity or another. Our school and the Open Doors program in particular is one of the most misunderstood in the district and one of the hardest to adequately explain to community members. How do you explain that our program creates purpose for students who have never felt like there was a point to anything they did in the classroom? How do you explain that our program facilitates engagement unlike anything these kids have ever experienced? They look forward to attending school each week. They feel welcomed, accepted, and celebrated for their unique contributions to our community. And they have academic success for the first time for many of them since elementary school. How do you explain that our program provides rigor that forces our students to use thinking muscles that had started to atrophy and challenges them to extend their learning further than the classroom walls? And how do you explain that our program creates, for the first time in their words, relevance and allows them to share their learning in ways that make sense to them? Being a part of this team has created the competency pathway has pushed me as an educator much more than any other teaching assignment I've been a part of, and we're only getting started. We realized that if we were truly going to be a re-engagement program, we needed to create things that our students wanted to engage with. And the online platforms were just not a fit. So what we've done is create a true alternative education option that's actually compatible with all the different learning styles. But what about the final results? The majority of our Open Doors kids are still in school and will graduate because of their investment in the competency pathway. This pathway has created hope and a place for students to belong who would have otherwise dropped out. So our team is just seeking a transcript and diploma for our competency students that more accurately reflects the purpose, engagement, rigor, relevance, and results that they've invested in and validates the unique work they're producing. Please accept this as an open invitation to frequent our classroom anytime you need to feel encouraged or just want to experience the energy that's generated by a room full of young adults thinking creatively. And finally, a special thank you to our principal, Deanna Hogan, for her encouragement, her trust, and her advocacy as we've blazed this trail for VPS. And I want to thank the board for its thoughtful consideration of our request. We are more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Kim. Next, signed up for public comment, we have Pearl Griffin.
Promoting.
right, Pearl, it looks like you have been promoted. When you are ready, you can unmute yourself and turn on your camera. And if you could just state your name, affiliation with the district, you will have 3 minutes when you're ready.
Okay, thanks. My name is Pearl Griffin, and I am also a teacher at Heights in the Open Doors program. And I would like to speak to the competency pathway as well. Just last night, I came across a quote by Octavia Butler. She says, "I wasn't a particularly good student, but I was an avid one. I wanted to know about everything. And as I learned, I wanted to play with knowledge, explore it, think about what it might mean or where it might lead." This stood out to me as a perfect way to begin my statement this evening, because through our competency pathway at Heights, students are doing just that. If meaning making, rigor, relevance, and equity are the building blocks of 21st century education, then our students in the competency pathway are pioneers. These young people, many of whom are the community's most vulnerable, are paving the way for personalized education in our district. As educators, we know that the most impactful learning happens when students are interested, curious, and creative. Our competency pathway at Heights engages young minds to think in ways that reflect the skills they will need to solve problems in their future careers, relationships, and communities. They are tackling such issues as bullying, identity, and adolescent depression, to name a few, and they are developing unique ways to reach authentic audiences outside of the classroom. They are collaborating with each other in ways that go beyond group work. Even though our students are credit deficient, the competency pathway allows us to use a truly asset-focused approach. Our students get to show that credits and grades do not define what they are capable of. To qualify for Open Doors, students must be more than a year behind for graduation, yet these students are creating websites to teach about deafness and autism, art showcases that undermine stereotyping, and songs that bridge across cultures. The competency diploma and transcript will allow them to demonstrate their assets and skills to colleges or employers as they step into their lives as adult community members. Every time I describe our program to other adults, there's always someone who says, "I wish this were available when I was in school." The competency pathway is an opportunity to infuse relevance directly into every aspect of the learning experience. It turns out, when you trust young people with their own education, they rise to the challenge. You met Daphne already. I want to thank the board and superintendent for their support in this innovation within our district. It has infused our students, their families, and their teachers with hope and allowed our program to grow into something worthy of the brilliant young minds that make their way to Heights Open Doors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pearl. Next on the list, we have Katie Bauer.
Promoting.
There we go. All right, Katie, it looks like you have been promoted. When you are ready, you can unmute yourself and turn on your camera if you would like. And then you will have, if you could say your name, affiliation with the district, you'll have 3 minutes when you're ready.
And I'm sorry, are you talking to me, Katie?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. We were gone for, okay. So Katie Bauer, and really quick before I start, there's 4 of us that signed up consecutively. Okay, so we're good to
Yes,
go.
I have a list of, it looks like several others after you.
Great. Okay, and you can see us okay? Sorry, I'm just.
We cannot see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, all right, here we go. We'll try and.
Doesn't look like your camera is turned on, but we can hear you.
Okay, so this is a letter to our VPS board directors. At the start of this year, a grassroots movement of parents across the state submitted identical public disclosure requests, otherwise known as PDRs, to over 60 school districts prepared by tribal lawyer Louis Ewing. You, the Vancouver School Board, have already received these lengthy documents, including a cover letter delivered by a process server on February 4th, and should be familiar with their contents. I'm really hoping that you all have read these documents thoroughly. The Washington Parents Alliance, otherwise known as WAPA, continues to grow and currently has over 10,000 participants, with more districts coming on board every week. This is not a funded nonprofit organization, and you will not find much information about WAPA online. This movement of parents has gathered to educate themselves on the Washington laws that create and govern our school system. For too long, parents have been ignorant and uninvolved in matters that influence our children's experience in school, and we aim to take responsibility for that mistake. What we discovered in the last 2 months presenting PDRs at school board meetings across the state was astonishing. The majority of school board members are just as ignorant of the laws that govern them as we were. Perhaps you, as a governing body, can learn together. Type RCW 28A into any search engine to begin the journey. Collectively, as these documents were shared to board members statewide, we were met with multiple reactions. Many were grateful for the efforts parents were making to help them find information from state agency that they were also curious about. They appreciated that we were bringing attention to laws that the schools might be violating. Other board members reacted with confusion, and others revealed how little they knew of the recent laws passed or amended that legally compel them to attend WASDA, otherwise known as Washington State School Directors Association, training that they may or may not agree with. We as parents were using the PDR process to do the job that our county sheriffs and your legal counsel should have been doing, educating you on the laws the schools could be violating as they have forced or coerced vaccines and masks on employees and students.
Can I just start?
Mhm.
As described in the PDRs, the Social Security Act.
I'm sorry, Bobby, are you continuing with your public comment, or I guess I'm not sure.
Yes, I'm done. Katie Bauer done. This is Bobby going next. So.
Okay, we do have Bobby next on the list, but I wasn't, are you guys just gonna, we'll reset the timer and now Bobby can start. And if you could just make sure to say your name and affiliation with the district when you start.
Sure. I'm Bobby, and I am a resident and a parent in Vancouver. As described in the PDRs, the Social Security Act, as codified in federal law, Title 42, Chapter 7, Subchapter 19, Section 1396F, as codified at 42 USC 139(6)F, appears to provide a federal religious exemption from all medical treatment or testing based on religious objection. How many teachers and staff applied for religious exemptions from the experimental COVID-19 vaccine and were denied? How many invaluable teachers and administrators were forced to quit or be coerced into getting a medical product they had hesitations about? Every state in the union has a law on informed consent, which outlines that medical doctors must inform a patient of risks and benefits of any medical product or device and receive a consent to administer the drug or device without coercion. Is it possible that threatening one's job if they do not take a vaccine could be considered coercion? Medical doctors did not mandate your employees to get vaccinated. The district did. Is the district comprised of medical doctors who have the ability to carry out an informed consent? How about Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and the Americans with Disabilities Act Amendment Act of 2008, which clearly outlines that a medical diagnosis from a doctor is not required to get an accommodation for a disability? How many parents in your districts applied for a medical exemption for their children who had difficulty wearing a mask? How many were coerced into thinking they were lawfully compelled to provide a medical diagnosis to get that mask exemption? How many were denied a medical exemption even after getting a doctor's note?
Okay, thank you. Next on the list, we have Alicia Meadows. Alicia, when you are ready, you can state your name and affiliation with the district, and we will, up there, the clock is reset. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm Alicia Meadows and I'm a resident of Vancouver Public Schools. Page 3 of section 504 and students with disabilities, PDF found on the website for Washington Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction clearly states that a school cannot require a parent to provide a medical diagnosis to evaluate a student. Yet Seattle School District requires a parent to provide a medical diagnosis to evaluate a student. Yet, school district requires a medical diagnosis on their mask exemption forms. How many other schools played this trick on parents, insinuating that parents needed to jump through hoops to protect their children when lawfully they did not? When a public official implies authority, they do not have or insinuate lawful requirement that do not exist. Is this not operating under the color of law? We are not lawyers, but last we checked, operating under the color of law is called official misconduct. It is a gross misdemeanor in this state. RCW 9A 80010, official misconduct. 1 is a public servant is guilty of official misconduct if with intent to obtain a benefit or to deprive another person of lawful right or privilege. He or she intentionally commits an unauthorized act under the color of law, or he or she intentionally refrains from performing a duty imposed upon him or her by law. Official misconduct is a gross misdemeanor. The Washington Parents Alliance, known as WAPA, served you these public disclosure requests as a courtesy and a favor to inform you of the possible legal liabilities that your own Washington State School Directors Association, WSSDA, groomed lawyers did not. The state agencies that compelled school districts to carry out masking and vaccinating measures knew that the safest way to avoid legal liability for vaccine injuries and the harmful effects of long-term mask wearing was to pass a liability down to the lowest local level of the school district.
Okay, next we have Sally Snyder. Sally, when you are ready, please state your name and affiliation with the district. You'll have 3 minutes also.
Sally Snyder, and I'm a Vancouver resident. Why did WASDA send a statewide alert and advise schools to seek legal counsel when they were informed that so many districts across the state were being served identical public disclosure requests asking for unidentifiable records? Through our PDRs, we were alerting our school board members to the legal liability that their own legal counsel may have been too nervous or ignorant to share with them. If you claim that you were just following orders from the state, will that protect you if down the line it's proven that the governor's emergency order was based on fraudulent data? Finally, it is important to note how many of the requests we made in those documents were, in a sense, rhetorical questions. We asked for specific documents on safety data for the COVID-19 vaccines that we know do not exist. We did this to point out that these documents should exist. How can vaccines be mandated to teachers after Pfizer has been so reluctant to share safety data with the public? And there are no informational inserts in the vaccine packages. We asked for proof of FDA authorization because we know it does not exist. The vaccines are still only under emergency use authorization, which is another way for vaccine manufacturers to exempt themselves from liability for the injured. These are bold statements,
but they are meant to help you see through the veil of media censorship that kept the real data from you. Our movement is comprised of teachers who have already been injured by these vaccines, bus drivers who suffer from numb extremities, basketball coaches who have paralyzed arms, teachers with strokes and blood clots, and too many who have recently buried their parents who died of heart failure after taking the vaccines. Please get curious, dig deeper, and reach out to us. Our most committed goal is to work with you, not against you. After all, we are neighbors in the same community who ought to be looking out for each other. May God deliver us from this mess, one good decision at a time. Respectfully, the parents of Washington State.
Okay, next on the list, Virginia Griffiths. Griffiths, is there a Virginia Griffiths there in your group?
Yes.
I'm here.
Okay. Virginia, if you could please state your name and affiliation with the district, you will also have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Jenny. I'm a retired senior citizen of the Vancouver School District. I want you to know that I pray for all of our leaders to make good decisions that are good for our children and our country. I want to quote our Declaration of Independence. It says, all men are created equal and they are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. 3 of those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our government was formed to secure those rights, not to grant them. Our rights come from God. And the government is limited to securing those rights. Our mandates are unconstitutional. They are against federal law. They are against institutional law. And even our president doesn't have the authority to mandate. That is the truth. Our children have been traumatized by all these restrictions. They have not been able to attend school. Many have committed suicide or are in depression. And I have heard from some of these students. So I know that is the truth. To this day, we are enforcing more mandates, which is making it harder for them to socialize and even to, smile at each other. A basic thing we'd love to have them have. And I know that the only reason the schools are doing these mandates is because of the state making a contract with the government so they could get additional funds. It's not about the children, it's about the money. And your job as educators is to teach our children the basics, to teach them the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and also to show them to love each other and to love their country. We are not doing either one of those. And I sincerely believe that everyone here wants the best for our children, and we want to work together with you to resolve these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Next on the list, we have Brianna Graham.
Promoting?
Okay, Brianna, when you are ready, if you could state your name and affiliation with the district, you will have 3 minutes.
I am Brianna Graham, and I am a student at the Heights campus. Being in the Open Doors program competency pathway has brought me the opportunity to graduate. With competencies, we can go at our own pace most of the time. Competencies has also given me the opportunity to work while going to school. Within the pathway, I get a list of competencies or skills to meet for graduation. When looking at the list, first thing I need to do is figure out what the skill is asking for. Once I understood what the what to do to meet the competencies, I find a topic that suits the needed requirements. Taking time to find the correct and reliable information is key for these competencies. While working through competencies, I have learned how to analyze information better. I have expanded my thinking on the community, of the needs of the community, and how different laws or damage to community can make a big impact. The next project I will be doing will be going into financial thinking. I will gain the knowledge I need later in life when it comes to buying a house or a car. I will be able to make a balanced decision financially. With every project I do, I reflect it into my own life within how I would feel or react. When starting the competency class, I thought it would be easy, but I was very wrong. Finding topics aren't the best thing to do. Personally, I have struggled with my topics and making sure I need everything to meet my needed competencies. But I enjoy expanding my thinking with every project I do. As I go through this class, I see myself growing into a more professional thinker who looks at the big picture, speaking currently on people's needs of the community and speaking with my advisors for helping people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brianna. It looks like that is all from our list. I do want to go back. Wendy Moose had signed up, but I still do not see Wendy in our list of attendees. So I do not believe that she is here. So Wendy, I apologize if you are here, but maybe your name is not displayed and we can't find you. So that appears to be all as far as our public comments. Thank you to everybody who signed up tonight and everybody who gave public comment. We appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts with us. Next on our agenda, we are moving into some of our action items. First on the list is the consent agenda. The consent agenda items include both instructional and administrative support services, as well as fiscal support services. So we will, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve our consent agenda items. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you, Director Sproul. Do I have a second?
This is Kathy. I'll second.
Thank you, Kathy. Any discussion? I did just want to point out, because several of our public commenters tonight were talking about the competency program. One of the items in our consent agenda is the competency-based program that they were talking about. Just for those who are listening and want to learn more about that, you can find out more about that in the agenda. With that, we will vote. Director Decker.
Oh, sorry. I approve.
Sorry. Director Smith.
Approve.
Director Sproul.
Approve.
Director Zavala.
Approve.
And I also approve, so that motion passes. Next on our agenda, we have our regular business items. First on the list is the recommendation to approve the action plan, the lead contamination at drinking water outlets. Dr. Snell is going to introduce this item.
Thank you, Director Barrows. As we discussed in the committee meeting, the recent new bill, House Bill 1139, changed some of the requirements related to lead testing in schools. And as a result, we needed to update our action plan related to lead testing. And so staff put together a plan and then shared that with the Department of Health for approval. And now we're bringing it forward to you for your consideration tonight. It has a timeline and communication outreach to our constituents, other details in there. I'm not sure if you have any questions tonight, but wanted to make sure that everyone understood that this plan is complying with the new requirements that Washington State has put into place.
Okay, do I have a motion?
This is Kathy. I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Zavala. Any questions or discussion about this item?
I think we discussed it pretty well at our committee of the whole meeting.
Yeah, I always appreciate having better metrics and better, making sure things are safer, and definitely following kind of these heightened guidelines, I think is a great thing. Any other discussion or comments? And just as Director Decker had pointed out, a lot of our items, both in the consent agenda and these regular business items, were items that we discussed at our last committee meeting. We asked a lot of questions, got a lot more insight. So if there are any questions, definitely referencing that committee meeting. There's more information there. With that, if there are no questions, we will go ahead and vote on this item. Director Decker.
I approve.
Director Smith.
Approve.
Director Sproul.
Approve.
Director Zavala.
Approve.
And I also vote to approve. The motion passes. Next on the list, we have a recommendation to conduct a first reading of a revised policy. Dr. Snell.
So this is the first reading. So we have two policies for your consideration. And like we've done in previous times, these will be back on the agenda in April for consideration. So typically, if there's questions, you're welcome to ask those comments at this time, or we just move these forward and use the committee meetings and study sessions to address any questions prior to a potential approval of the policy change.
Okay. Are there any questions about these? There are two first readings. Any questions about either one of those? All right, with that, that is the end of our action items. Last on our agenda, we have Board of Directors report. Are there any directors? I do have a topic to bring up, but are there any other directors that have topics? So one of the topics I wanted to just kind of bring up for discussion, in our superintendent's report, Dr. Snell provided an update on recent guidelines regarding mask requirements. And I know one of the, when we pivoted back in December to return to remote learning, masking was part of that consideration that we made, just the mask requirements at our meeting, attendees being required to wear masks. With the change in the mask requirements, I wanted to kind of bring up for discussion the idea of when we might want to consider returning to in-person board meetings to kind of get a feel for other directors and kind of what they are thinking. If anybody has any thoughts or comments.
I'll I guess start the ball, or maybe I'll be the only one to throw out the ball. But I want to just make sure that people realize that we didn't stop meeting in person because we had to have masks. We stopped meeting in person because we had issues with people not following the guidelines that we were required to follow. And which made me sad because I enjoy being able to see people in person. It's part of my nature. It's why I like to teach. So while I'm delighted that the masking mandate has been rescinded or will be, and that we can go in person with showing our faces, I also want to make sure that when we do go back to our general meetings in person, that we recognize that we're still expecting people to come and be civil and to abide by the common decency of how we attend business meetings. So that took me a long time to spit that out. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Director Decker.
I will basically echo what Kathy said. I definitely favor in-person meetings. I look forward to the opportunity to meet in person where we can all see each other's faces. That will be a couple years. I want to echo though that, it wasn't just about masks why we pivoted. I think there was some disruptions that interfered with our ability to do our business, but it also, there were disruptions that created an environment that not all community members felt comfortable giving public comment. So I'm very eager to get back in the boardroom and have in-person meetings under the premise that we still maintain a high expectation for civility and just a welcoming space so everyone is comfortable giving their comment.
I'll just say ditto. I think seems like we're all in agreement. My preference is always going to be in person, like Kyle said. I'm eager to get back to being able to see you guys again in person, as well as our constituents in person as well. But the priority does have to be making sure that it's a safe place for people, that people feel comfortable also being there in person and giving that public comment. So, I mean, it's not just the masks. Like I'm looking forward. I'm counting down the days too, like many people. I don't have to remember my mask as I go out my door in the morning. So it's not just about the mask. It really is about making sure that our boardroom is a comfortable place, an inviting place, a safe place for everyone who's there, regardless of what it is that they want to share with the board.
I am in ditto ×4. I think my only caution I think is the same, is just that I know the word safe space, right? Sometimes people have questioned that, but a safe space is somewhere where you don't feel threatened or questioned, and that you're able to give your input without I guess without feeling like you have to shy away from yourself or shy away from others. I just really hope that we're able to kind of create that again, where our constituents in our community and especially our students feel comfortable and giving. I think we all respect one another and respect the voice. And I want us, I hope that's, I think the hope in our boardroom is that we're able, as a community, be able to respect each other's voices, even if they're different. So that's just my caution, I guess. And going back, I also love being in person and seeing everyone. So.
I did just want to thank you, Sandra. The guidance has changed as far as masking requirements goes, but we also, as a board, we follow our district guidelines for schools, but we also do follow the Open Public Meetings Act. And as of now, there have not been any changes to our OPMA guidelines. We can continue with all remote meetings if we would choose to. The Open Public Meetings law just requires that we must be accessible to the public. And with Zoom, the public can fully participate by observing, making public comment. We can choose to go back to in-person, but if we do go back in person, we do need to continue to have a remote option. So we would continue to do that. And I think that has been a wonderful benefit to our community, you know, which I can't foresee the future, but I know that, you know, I think it's just a great way to be accessible to the public. So for anybody that is kind of wondering that, there will still be a remote option. Director Sproul, looks like you might have something else to share.
Well, I just wondered if it might be an opportunity for one of our study sessions or committee of the whole, if we discuss in public kind of what those expectations are and how we want to communicate those to the community. So we do get a fresh start with in-person meetings, just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Okay. I think that would be a good topic. I can talk to Dr. Snell about including that on an upcoming agenda.
Thank you.
So do we want to move forward with having, maybe starting at our April board meeting, returning to in-person, or Dr. Sproul, are you thinking that we would have a study session to kind of hash out the when?
I was hoping maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe we could do it before then, but at our board retreat. If I know we'll be in person, so maybe after our board retreat, we're able to start back in person. I don't know.
Which would be probably like our May board meeting versus April.
I think there's an opportunity to have a conversation before our first in-person meeting, just to refine, like I just said, some of those expectations and how we really plan to communicate those expectations. But I'm open to it. So as long as we have an opportunity for that conversation as a board, I'm open to whatever date others suggest.
Okay.
Well, and I think that we can also have those conversations at either, as Director Barrow said, we'll probably at a study session rather than the committee of the whole, but we could even do it at the committee of the whole sometime in March. We have 2 more meetings in March, and then go ahead and do our April in person. But I also don't, if there are people that feel like they need a little more time, I'm not chomping at the bit, but I think it would be nice the sooner that we could do it, the better. But I also want to make sure that everybody feels like they've had a chance to discuss it.
I'm happy to work with Director Barros to look at agendas for March to further the discussion. And then staff, we will stay up to date on OPMA if there's any potential changes related to that. You know, lots changed in the last 4 weeks. So, you know, could be that our timeline gets accelerated or decelerated based on other factors beyond our control. So I know that Director Barros and Director Zavala and I have an agenda kind of planning meeting that would be coming up. We can talk about that and create some opportunities for the directors to discuss this further.
Perfect. Yes, we will continue to communicate kind of our plans moving forward on timelines for returning to in-person meetings. So stay tuned for more information. Thank you guys for your input and feedback on that topic. Are there any other board director reports to share?
I just wanted to give a board shout out to our recent donation for our early childhood center. That couple, as anybody that read the Columbian knows, that couple donated very under the table, so to speak, very quietly throughout their years in Vancouver, and were responsible for a lot of amazing programs that got started here in Vancouver for our early learners. And it was exciting, but not surprising that one of their last hurrahs was to donate so much money to our littles. So I just wanted to say thank you to the foundation for that.
Thank you for that reminder. Yes, that was wonderful to hear. Next, we will be recessing now for an executive session. Let me pull that up. Recessing for an executive session to discuss the performance of a public employee. There will be no action to follow. We are going to be recessing for approximately 1 hour. So when our executive session is adjourned, I will return to this board meeting to announce our adjournment. But again, there is no action to follow. Thank you all for attending. All right, we are back from our executive session. Thank you to anyone who was staying tuned. It is 7:39 and we are adjourned. Thank you so much. Have a good night.